Thank you. You may be seated. Advocate Hassan.
Thank you, Justice. And thank you for the indulgence for allowing us to stand down for a little longer than expected. Before I begin, there are several LAs that need to be handed up to you, Justice, that I will refer to during the course of cross-examination. And I think they have been circulated to my colleagues. Thank you. Good afternoon, Ms. Mahlangu.
Good afternoon, Councillor.
My name is Adila Hassan, and I appear with my colleague, Ms. Nikki Steyn, and we represent families of the deceased. I'd like to begin with the report, the Ombuds report, which was released on the 1st of February 2017. Do you accept the findings of the report?
Thank you, Council. As I said, I initiated the report, the process of the report being investigated. And upon my resignation, government accepted the report. And at the moment, I cannot express a view on legal issues because I've just had a legal team working with me since Friday.
It's not a view on legal issues. Have you read the report of the Ombud?
Yes, I did.
Do you agree with the contents of the report by the Ombud?
I commissioned the report of the ombudsperson, and I think that suffices to say that I thought that things had gone horribly wrong, and on the basis of that, it needed investigation to be done.
Do you agree with the contents of the report of the Ombud?
Government has accepted the report.
But do you agree? Do you agree with the contents of the report of the Ombud?
I have also expressed my sincere condolences and the fact that any loss of life is regrettable. And I think that is important for the purposes of this arbitration to really sincerely continue to say how sorry I am. I wish I can turn the clock, but it's impossible.
Thanks, Ms. Mahlangu. There will also be an opportunity for you at a later point towards the end.
All right, let's cross live now to the ANC headquarters in Johannesburg, Latuli House.
For now, can you please answer the question whether you accept the findings of the report?
Government has accepted the report, and I'm no longer part of government, and I think
so
that
in other words, you don't
explain.
accept.
I didn't say that.
So do you accept it? Do you agree with the findings?
I've given you my answer, Council.
No, actually, you have.
And that's where we want government also to focus. Commission's focus, as I said already, on higher education and training, on health, land, agrarian reform, industrialization, and money.
Of the report of the Health Ombud.
In my statement, I'm not sure which paragraph was that, I indicated that the loss of life is regrettable. And I indicated also in my statement, I'm not sure exactly which paragraph, that things did go wrong. And maybe to answer the justice question, to say, why did I resign?
It's not to go there now.
No.
It's not because there was no reason. I could have answered before lunch, but I thought it's important.
Yes.
We are going to
you
get.
could do that later.
Okay.
For now, counsel has questions, and I would like her to continue with the cross-examination.
Okay. All right.
But keep the question in mind. It's the big question that you have to come to at some time. But for now, let's try and make progress with the cross-examination.
Justice, we will get to that question very, very shortly. But could you please answer the question as to whether you accept the findings, whether you agree with the findings of the report?
I note the contents and the findings of the report, and I think that suffices to say that, and as a person who initiated the process in the first instance, and I think that is very important to indicate to this House, as I've demonstrated, and in the annexure which demonstrate my conversation with Professor Malekapuri from the beginning when I first made the call to him till the very end when he finally submitted the report.
We'll get to the question of who initiated the investigation by the
It's okay.
Ombud. Let me ask you this question. Do you accept the findings that are made against you in the report?
My responsibility is defined by law. For instance, something is said in the report that people were scared of me. And in terms of the Public Finance Management Act, as I've stated before lunch or before the tea break, that the responsibilities of the executing authority, which will be a politician in a particular department, I defined in government statute, whether it be the PFMA, financial related, or the public service regulations. To the extent that the legislation described my responsibility and those of officials who would have worked with me at the time, it is impossible or not appropriate for anybody who could have protected themselves, him or herself, when so-called instructions were given illegal by following the procedures, to say to the Auditor General, the MEC is forcing me to do this and I do not agree.
Ms.
This
Mahlangu,
is going
that's
to
not
be the consequence.
Sorry to interrupt, but and we can get there as well at the appropriate time, but that's not the question I'm asking. My question is, do you agree that the Ombud made findings against you in his report?
Yes, he did make findings against
Do
me.
you agree with those findings?
I
Do
do
you
not
take
agree
issue?
with his findings relating to me and my role, because it was, I do not agree with his finding when it relates to me personally or in my capacity as the then MEC for Health.
So you deny the correctness of his findings?
Absolutely.
Did you appeal the report?
No, I didn't,
Why not?
because I just needed to, I thought my resignation was sufficient enough that I take responsibility and I'm accountable, which is what internationally is done. When something goes wrong in a particular political environment, for an example, David Cameron in the UK initiates the Brexit referendum. Something goes wrong according to what he was hoping the referendum will result, and he decides to go. And there's a plethora of examples that I can cite which really demonstrate that I was sorry enough to indicate that I could not justify to myself and to the public to remain the MEC for Health, and then I decided to resign on my own volition, not being forced by anybody.
Did you not publicly state before the report was released that you would subject yourself to accountability?
My resignation was subjecting myself to accountability, and
You
the
can
fact that I'm here today
Okay.
without being
one
forced
step
by
at a time.
anybody demonstrate my willingness to answer any
So you
question
consider your
before the arbitration
resignation-
committee.
You consider your resignation to be sufficient?
I did not say that.
Did you state publicly before the Ombuds report was released that you would subject yourself to accountability?
That is why I'm here before the arbitration, and my understanding
So
is that
your answer is yes.
the arbitration process has been established as a result
Is your answer
of
yes?
the report that government has accepted.
Is your answer then yes?
I've given you my answer, Council.
Sorry, we cannot have all of you heckle every time you don't like an answer, please. Remember, we waited for long to have this witness here. So I ask you to show patience in these proceedings. Your counsel is asking questions. Let's have answers. You won't like all of the answers, but frankly, we cannot make progress as we heckle to every answer.
Ms.
Please.
Mahlangu, do you agree, and I'm not asking you whether you agree with, whether you have any objection to this, but do you agree that the Ombud found that your conduct amounted to negligence?
The Public Finance Management Act regulates responsibilities of the executive and that of the administration. And it will be incorrect of me to want to take responsibility on
I'm
issues
just asking
that
you a simple
related to the
question.
administration
Do
process.
you agree with me that the Ombud found your conduct to amount to
The
negligence?
responsibility of any executive council, senior council, is determined by regulations and laws of
That's-
South Africa.
that's
And on the
absolutely
basis
fine.
of that, I cannot take responsibility
I'm
on
not asking
things
you to take
that
responsibility
are beyond
right
my
now.
responsibility as a politician
Okay.
at the time.
Ms. Mahlangu, it would help if you answered the questions, because what you're doing is you're evading answering the questions. And that's just going to keep us here longer. So it's I'm not asking you to implicate yourself in any way. What I'm asking you to say is, do you agree that a finding of the Ombud was that your conduct amounted to negligence?
My duties are defined by the Public Finance
Okay,
Management Act.
let's clear this up quickly, former MEC and council. Council, do you want to put to the witness what the finding is?
Yes.
And then the next question would be, does she agree with the finding? But the finding doesn't depend on her answer. I mean, it is there in the report. If you put it here and find out
That's
whether
right.
she agrees with the finding.
It's not, my question isn't whether you agree with the finding. I'll put it to you. It's simply the question which leads to a different question. But the question is whether you agree that this is in the report, that it amounts to negligence. This is the finding by the Ombud. And if you like, you may refer to the report. It's at page 17 of his report.
Yeah, that's just my point. It is in the report, so the witness does not have to go say yes or no. It is there. The real question is whether she agrees with the finding.
The finding is as follows. The decision was irrational and totally against the fundamental principle of healthcare practice. That is, to consciously remove a patient, let alone a frail and sickly patient, from an environment of stable professional care to an insecure environment of less quality health care or unpredictable and unprofessional health care. This decision was made despite and against professional and expert advice and warnings. This amounted to negligence. This finding, the Ombud, related to the conduct of Dr. Manuela, Dr. Celebano, and yourself.
But it will be incorrect.
MEC, former MEC, just before you go here, just take it easy. Apply your mind to the proposition so we can make progress, okay? A very specific question has been put to you. There's a finding about you. So just give us a response to that finding in particular. You may say, I agree with it, I disagree with it, and you may thereafter make an explanation so that we can make progress, okay? That's what the Ombuds has found. It's been put to you by council, and you have to give us a precise answer on what is your response to finding against you in particular. And
Justice,
the shorter, the better, if I may offer that advice, which you haven't sought, but will help.
Thank you, Justice Msaneke. Issues of, I do not agree with the Ombuds when he has a finding against me that I was negligent. Reason being, I am not an administrator, or I was not an official. It cannot be said that the same responsibility that Dr. Manamela had and that of the HOD can apply to me in law. It's absolutely incorrect, because the Public Finance Management Act and the Public Service Regulation legislation and many other regulations prescribe what is the role of an executive authority, what is the role of official, particularly the role of the accounting officer. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Council?
Do you agree that Section 27 of the Constitution binds you as an MEC?
I'm binded by the Constitution on many aspects as a citizen of South Africa, and I subject myself to any provision of the Constitution. But the Constitution doesn't say that if there's a finding about me today about negligence, I should accept it as is because it will it does violate
For
my
instance,
rights
an-
as a citizen.
An answer of yes would have sufficed. And then you can explain further. We are all bound by the Constitution. Stop. Yes is the answer. That doesn't implicate or incriminate anybody. And then wait for the next question.
Okay, I'm sorry, Justice.
No
My
problem at
apologies.
all. You don't have to be sorry. I'm just urging that look, we're in a public hearing, publicly funded. We need to make progress, get to an outcome. So I'm just a conductor.
Absolutely.
There'll be questions and there'll be answers. Questions ought to be short, answers ought to be short so that we get to the core of the inquiry that the arbitration wants to get at. Counsel?
Thanks, Justice. Ms. Mahlangu, there'll be a document in front of you that I just handed up, and it's numbered Ella 127. Do you see it? It's your resignation letter.
Okay, I don't have it with me. Okay.
And at paragraph 4 of your resignation letter, you say, whereas the Health Ombudsman has not found any culpability on my part for the unfortunate loss of lives by the patients, accepting that the deinstitutionalization of mental health patients is a sound and internationally recognized program, I want to reiterate my regret at the loss of lives associated with the transfer of patients from Life Esidimeni to the various NGOs and extend your condolences. The point is that the Health Ombudsman had found culpability on your part. Isn't that so?
But my statement clearly say that there has not been any culpability
Yes,
on my
but
side.
the paragraph that I read to you now from the Health Ombudsman report says that it amounted to negligence and that it was irrational.
But I repeat again that I do not agree with that finding.
So is that the reason why you say the Health Ombudsman has not found any culpability on your part?
I've answered to Council.
The importance of this statement is to understand what we would like to understand is what you take away from the Ombudsman report and the implications for you, particularly when it comes to accountability. But let's move on. In the next paragraph, you say, I take political accountability as the final authority in the department. And it's for that reason that you tender your resignation. What do you mean by political accountability?
Because I realized that things had gone horribly wrong under my leadership by having listened to all the advices being given to me by the officials. On the basis of that, I thought politically, let me take responsibility and resign and allow government to function and to restore the confidence that probably this project would have led to people losing confidence in government.
And you resigned the day before the report was released, is that right?
No, I resigned on the 1st of January. Of the 1st of February, I'm sure you can see that the statement is issued on the 1st of February 2017.
You resigned on the 1st,
Yes.
not on the 31st.
No.
The Premier, in his statement, said that you resigned on the 31st of January. Is that incorrect?
I'm sure you can go and get the letter of my resignation that I wrote to the Premier as well as to the legislature, and you can, that information, I'm sure the Premier's office can make it available for you.
You're saying the letter was signed on the 1st of February?
My letter of resignation?
Yes.
Yes, I signed it on the 1st of February.
But did you agree with the Premier on the 31st of January that you would resign?
I offered to resign to the Premier, by the way, on the 10th of January. My brother died, and subsequent to that, we delayed all the action till I buried my brother to come back and deal with this issue.
You offered to resign on the 10th of January?
Yes.
Why did you offer to resign then?
I've already explained that, Madam. Council.
Well, that was before the Ombuds report was released.
But I was privy to the report.
So you offered to resign on the 10th of January.
Yes, but
And you didn't meet with the Premier on the 31st of January.
I met with the Premier on the 10th of January. I met with the Premier on the 31st of January.
And did you then tender your resignation on the 31st of January?
I tendered my resignation to the Premier on the 1st of January.
On the 31st of January?
On the 1st of January.
1st of
On
February.
the 1st of February, sorry, excuse me. 1st of February 2017.
And were you offered any payment or package in order to facilitate your resignation?
By who?
By anybody in government? By the Premier?
But I'm not sure whether that is standard practice in the first place. So I'm not aware of any golden handshake, if that's what you mean. I'm not aware of any of that at all.
You were not offered that?
No, I wasn't. And I'm not sure why would I be offered any golden handshake in the first instance.
Well, we don't need to speculate. That your answer is you were not offered any golden handshake or a
wasn't.
sweetener in order to leave.
I wasn't. I offered to go.
You took
And
your
the
last
prem- and the-
paycheck and you
the prem-
left.
Yes, my last salary was on the 15th of January 2017.
And then you sought to study abroad.
Yes.
And is government paying for your studies abroad? Or
Why would government pay for my studies?
the answer is yes or no,
No, government is not responsible for.
personally.
Yes, I am.
And you went to study abroad, and in so doing, you knew it would be difficult to reach you if you.
That's absolutely incorrect, Council, because as I said in my statement, when I left, it was not a secret. Probably if I knew you, you would have known that I was going to leave. But people who knew me or were my friends or my family and the leadership of the African National Congress in the province, including the Premier, they knew that I had left. And I sought permission because I hold office in the African National Congress. So there was no secret that I traveled abroad to go and study.
Now, I'm not saying it was a secret. Do you still hold an office with the African
Yes,
National
I do.
Congress? And do you think that you have sufficiently accounted for the events that took place around the Life Esidimeni termination project?
I am not sure, Council, what do you mean by that? Because I see myself having agreed to come here to this arbitration process as part of respecting the process and what government is trying to do in finding closure and helping families to find closure. And
So-
that is what I'm committed to do, and I'll continue to be committed to that until this matter has been fully finalized.
We do appreciate that you have now made yourself available to the proceedings. The proceedings have been delayed so that we could wait for you. Why did it take so long? Why could you not come earlier when you were requested to come earlier?
Council, when I did indicate in my statement that when I left South Africa at the beginning of August to commence with my studies, I was not aware of any processes that was going to start in government. Nobody in government, nor in the African National Congress said to me, this is what is going to happen on this day and that day. When I applied at the university, which I've already stated when I was presenting my statement, that I applied and I was accepted and I paid for my fees and I looked for accommodation and I found that, and I made commitments to study for X number of time in the UK. So people who are close to me and those who are my friends and family, they knew my whereabouts and where I was. So there was no secret or any hidden agenda of me not being accessible. As I'm saying, people who wanted to reach me, they were always talking to me every single day.
My question was, why, when you were requested to be available for these proceedings last year, you were not available. And my question was, why were you not available?
Actually, maybe through you, Justice.
Yes, the answer could be I was studying and I was in the UK and I couldn't come back. Stop. Ungabili, mama. Ungabili. Just put the lead.
I'm not,
Kanti
Justice.
umoya wena no council wakho kanti umoya nje mama. Just take it. Pendula nje, I'm here to protect you. You answer just shortly what is being said. Angabilisi and ungabili. I was saying to the witness in her home language, there's no point to boil and overboil. We're trying to get to the facts, and the purpose is the one you've mentioned. And Yatoroz, that you mentioned it, is to try and get the truth to all these people about what happened. Let's just keep that in mind. You are not under fire, under attack. We want to know what happened so that we can tell the nation and family members what happened. So I ask you just to reduce your emotions, please. Let's
Thank
go,
you,
Council.
thank you, Justice.
Yeah, go special. Okay, Mami.
As I indicated earlier, that I was in the UK for the purposes of my study, and I commenced with my studies from the 5th of August, and I've been continuing. I was continuing with my studies, and that's why I was not available early on at the time. Actually, there was nobody who made any formal request to me, and when I kept on hearing what was
That's an
going
adequate
on,
answer. Let the
Sorry.
advocate ask you more if she wants to know. You're not able to come, you've said your reasons, that's enough. And let there be more questions, then we're going to make progress. Now you're going to get time to rest and listen to the question too. Okay. Counsel?
Thank you. Ms. Mahlangu, you said that you were the person who initiated the investigation by the Ombud.
That is correct.
And the Ombud says that it was the National Minister of Health that requested the investigation. Are you saying that he was incorrect?
Sorry. Thank you, Justice, for your indulgence.
Yes, ma'am.
I answered the question to the legislature on the 13th of September, excuse my mistake, in September 2016. On the 14th of September, I called the Professor Makhuba in the morning, and I said to him, can you do the investigation for us? And then he said to me, what happened? And I said, well, 36 people died. He asked me, where did they die? I said, in different
What is that?
facilities.
Okay, thank you.
And I said to him, will you do the investigation? He said, well, I don't think it's necessary, but yeah, then we ended there. And then he said,
just, it'll be easier if we take it step by step. I put it to you that Professor Makhuba's version that's in his report is that the minister requested the investigation. Are you saying that's not true, that in fact you initiated the investigation?
yes, it's true that I initiated the investigation.
And
can you go
in
to
your
the annex?
statement,
Sorry.
in your statement to us this morning, at paragraph 53 of your statement, you say that you met with the Minister of Health, Dr. Matsoaledi, on the afternoon of 14 September. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And that you informed him that you'd spoken to Professor Makhuba and that Professor Makhuba was not keen
Absolutely
investigate.
Correct. Absolutely correct.
And then the minister indicated that he would engage the professor.
That is absolutely correct. May I, through you, Counsel?
Yes. You want to
Justice?
explain? Yes, you may. You've given the answer, and yes, you are permitted to explain.
On the 14th of September at 10:26 a.m., Professor Makgoba responded. This is on your annexures in the
Yes, I
document
have it in front
given.
of me.
The professor's response was read as follows. It's virtually unheard of to have 36 deaths rapidly. Poisoning or an overdose of drugs could be the case. Toxicological analysis is crucial at this point. Thanks. We'll wait to hear progress. Mali Khapuru. Then I responded, I said,
And what are we supposed to make of that? He says it's virtually unheard of to have 36 deaths
it is because,
rapidly.
Sorry.
I'm just saying, what are we supposed, you've read to us that SMS.
I had
And that
called
he
him-
says poisoning or an overdose of drugs could be the cause.
I had called him earlier, and I said that also in the morning, that I had called the professor before, and I asked him to do the investigation for us because he's a health ombudsperson. And in his response, we had a very brief chat, and in his response, this is what he responded via an SMS, and this is the contents of that.
I see.
Of that response. And further on, you'll see through you, Justice,
Yes, certainly.
you'll see where it says, just remind the minister to forward a letter of appointment. And then the conversation goes on and on and on. It's all in the text messages between me and the professor.
Yes, he says he's putting a team together to deal with this speedily. So and this is at 11:23 a.m.
That is on the 15th.
So he wasn't, it doesn't indicate that he wasn't keen. And then that afternoon you spoke to the minister, is that correct?
On the 14th, yes. And then on the 15th, then he said that he's putting a team together, as you see the response from the 15th onwards.
Yes, no, it appears that he was keen to get the team together to investigate. Wouldn't you say so?
I'm saying it was after the minister had spoken to him, because on the 14th in the afternoon, I had spoken to the minister when we had a meeting to discuss a different matter.
You're saying this SMS was after you had spoken to the minister?
Yes.
So why does it say 11:23? Why did it say 10:26 a.m. on the 14th?
No, but the message that the professor, that the next conversation with the professor is on the 15th. It's not on the 14th.
And you're saying that it took the minister to persuade him?
Yes,
Okay.
I believe so, because I'd requested him, and at the time he was not keen, or maybe he did not probably understand, or he did not appreciate fully of what was going on.
What the importance was?
Yeah. Not
And you
necessarily
say that
important.
what caused you to approach the professor was the information that you had now received from the department about 36 deaths.
Yes, that is correct.
And in fact, there were more than 36 deaths by 13 September. Isn't that correct?
Now I believe that there were more than 36 deaths, but at the time, that was a number I was given officially from the department when the question was raised to me.
Do you know how many, in fact, had died by then?
No, by then I know that it was 36. I did not know it was more than 36.
No, now do you know?
I heard it was more than 140.
No, by September 2016.
No, I did not know until, through you, Justice, till I went to, I was engaging with Professor Makgoba through the different processes where he was asking for this document and that document, and you can see in the SMSs. Then he said to me, do you know how many people have died? And I said to him, well, it's the 36. He said, there's more than 36 people who died. Actually, when you answered the question in the legislature, the numbers was already high. I said, well, there's nothing much I can do to change the numbers, because what I'm given is normally the procedure you follow to get numbers and answer questions to the legislature through the department.
And you say that it was the officials who provided you with that information.
Absolutely.
You relied on that.
Absolutely.
And that was the information you gave
Yes,
to Parliament. Just for your information, it was 85 deaths by that time, rather than 36. And you said that Dr. Manamela provided you with those figures?
In my statement, Council, you'll see that I describe how the process of answering questions in the legislature happens, that information comes from the legislature through the parliamentary liaison officer in the MEC's office, and thereafter it's then sent to the respective officials who then source the information and bring it back to the HOD. He signed off the document and it comes back to me and I go to the legislature.
Let me ask you the question again. It relates to your evidence in chief. In your evidence in chief, you said that Dr. Manamela told you that these deaths were due to natural causes.
Yes, that's what I was told at the time.
And did you have any doubt about that? Did you
Well,
have any reason to question whether the
actually,
deaths were due to natural causes?
I didn't, because I'm dealing with highly qualified people who have been working in the department, some of them for long periods of time. It may not have been in Gauteng or maybe in other provinces or the private
You've
sector.
answered the question. Highly qualified people told you,
Yes.
stop. That's enough. There might be other questions or explanations.
Was it your view that these deaths were in the normal course for patients with these conditions, with these type of patients?
May you please repeat your question?
Was it your view that for these type of patients, patients with psychiatric illnesses, mental health care users, that this was in the normal course, that number wasn't unusual because of the type of patient that was involved?
Yes, it was said it's usual to have those kinds of deaths, particularly looking at the period between the winter period. It will be May to July, if I'm not mistaken. Even when we met with the Premier was also, when he asked what happened, we then had a meeting with him, I think on the 15th in the afternoon. And in that meeting, it was indicated to the Premier that indeed, mental health care users, they normally die in high numbers during this time of the year. And if I don't know whether you've got access to the media statement that the Premier subsequently issued after the meeting he held with myself and the officials trying to explain.
Well, the another question was, did you believe that patients died of natural causes? And the answer could be yes or no. And then the question will follow. That's how lawyers work. Why did you believe so? If there's no why, you move on. It's just going to save all of us time and ability to get to where we want to get to. So you believed these were deaths due to natural causes?
Yes, Justice, I did.
The next question would be why. So you wait for it, it will come. Counsel?
Thank you, Justice. Is that why you referred us to statistics of deaths at Life Esidimeni in your evidence in chief?
Yes, because when we,
Yes. And have you analyzed that information? Have you analyzed those statistics?
Yes, when we, okay.
Your answer is yes. Your answer is yes.
We analyzed those numbers, yes.
And what were your key conclusions based on your analysis?
Based on the analysis given to me by the officials, it indicated that the deaths were not unusual when you compare it with the same periods and the same numbers that were more or less happening at Life Esidimeni, particularly during that specific period of time of the year, which will be winter. And as I said, that's why the same information was shared with the Premier on the 15th of September.
Okay, so it was an analysis conducted by your department officials?
Yes.
Who in the department?
I don't know exactly, but I remember in the meeting we had with the Premier, there was a presentation. I think HOD was present, Dr. Manamela and the different other members of the mental health care team, and those were brought from different hospitals.
And do you have a copy of that analysis?
I do not have it, Counsel. That's why I kept on saying that there are documents, particularly that presentation we made to the Premier on that day, I do not have, because it contains all of this information.
And again, you accepted that information that was provided to you?
Yes, I did.
As being correct?
Authentic, yes.
And so you didn't have any reason to have concern by the number of deaths, the 36, leaving aside for the moment that it was 85 in reality, but the 36 was what you knew? You were not concerned?
We remember, Counsel, we had already spoken to the Minister, and the process was unfolding of appointing, of getting the Ombuds to start the process of investigation. That was on the 15th of September.
And that's because you were concerned about the number of deaths?
Yes, it bothered me that so many people had died, particularly at Precious Angel, because 18 of the numbers out of the 36 would have died at Precious Angel.
And that's why you say you initiated the Ombuds investigation. I'd like you to have a look at an analysis that's been done by the Ombud on the death rate. And that's in LR 57. LR 57.
Is it in the Ombuds
There's
report?
there should be an exhibits bundle.
Electronically, you don't have to give that to me. Thank you.
Yeah, so I've got it.
And it's LR 57. You have it, LR 57?
Yes, I do, Councillor.
Okay. So if you could have a look at page 3. You'll see a section that's headed Summary of Statistical Analysis. Do you see that?
Yes, yes, yes.
And in paragraph A, it stated the death rate is 8 times higher than the general population. Do
Yeah,
you-
I see that.
Excuse me?
I see
You
what
see
you
it.
have here.
You'd agree that that's quite startling.
Yes, it's stated in the report.
I'm just saying you received information that this was not unusual
Yes,
for
of
this
course,
type of
yeah.
patient. I'm providing you with counter evidence by Professor Makgoba that in fact it was unusual. In fact, so unusual that it was 8 times higher than the general population. You'd agree that that is significant.
Yes, it is significant.
And if you look at paragraph C, the risk factors for death, and he stipulates what the risk factors were. And it's being transferred to an NGO as opposed to being transferred to a hospital. Then he says age was another risk factor, that is being older as opposed to being younger, and being female as opposed to being male. So would you agree from that that the death rate was due to the way in which patients were moved?
I don't know. It's in the report, Councillor. So
Just asking, do you agree that there's a correlation, there's a causation between the way in which people were moved and the death?
probably there is from what it is stated in this. But
And there's also a link between the places to which the patients were sent and the deaths. You agree?
I don't know. I think they're stated in the report, so I think it suffices to say that it explains what happened, and yeah.
It's important for us, and in the process of accountability and your role and your position in particular, that we clarify some of this. So you've said to us that you had information that this was not unusual. What I'm showing you is that, in fact, it was unusual. And so I'm asking whether you accept that there's a link between the manner in which patients were transferred and the places to which they were transferred and their deaths.
I think the Professor Council has made that link and that conclusion in relation to this. So I
Yes.
don't think I will be competent to answer, because I was not exposed to the greatest of details of the data, and I'm aware that he's also worked with Statistical when he, may I elaborate?
Yes, yes.
When I met with him in one of the occasions, he asked me that we must submit ID numbers and other details relating to the patients who would have died. That was also as part of assisting the process at the Stats SA on the work that he was doing. So I would not be privy really to the greatest of detail the models and what exactly the sample size.
I'm not asking about the models,
as
though.
the Stats SA would have looked into.
I'm not asking about the models. I'm asking whether you accept that the deaths that occurred because of the manner in which patients were transferred and the places to which they were transferred.
To a large extent, yes, I think that's appropriate. Yeah.
Thank you. And then...
No, what is appropriate? Let's just get it clearly on record.
What council is raising, that probably there could be a link between the move and...
Now, what's put to you are the findings of the Ombuds. Who says to you there is a connection between the extent and manner of death connected with the way patients were moved? And you have no means to deny that, can you?
No, I have no means to deny it, Council. And
the second part would be, do you accept the findings? Just to get clear on record what you mean.
Yes, I accept them.
Very well.
Thank you. At page 4 of that same document, if you look at point 6, I mean, look, the first few paragraphs talk about your earlier contention that it was winter and there are more deaths in winter. The professor disposes of that reasoning. But the key point is in point 6, that the pattern and peak of death was 12.8 deaths per month at Life Esidimeni during those months, June, July, August, in 2014 and 2015, and that it increased to 22 deaths per month at the facilities, at the NGOs, once after the move, that is, following the transfer. You accept that finding?
Yes, it's in the report. I think
the point is simply, and it again is reflected in the graph on the next page, that the death rate at the NGOs was far higher than the death rate at Life Esidimeni. Do you see that?
Yeah, I can see that.
So the reason that it's because it was a particular type of patient doesn't hold true. Isn't that so?
Well, I can't, I'm not a professional in healthcare, so I won't be able to say that's true or not, because I would be, yeah.
But if you accept the findings of the Ombud that we've just looked at, the statistical analysis, then what you said earlier, that it's common for this type, or it's usual rather for this type of patient, you agree now that this was unusual even for this type of patient, this death rate?
From the information that the Ombuds has and from what is concluded, yes, this is a fact as compared to what I was told and what the Premier was told in the meeting we held with them by the professionals concerned.
And the information that was provided to you by your officials, was there any other information that you had, other than information that was provided to you by your officials? Was there any other information you had about what was happening at the NGOs when you reported to the legislature? By the 13th of September, we're talking about the 36 deaths that 13th September, that's what led you to initiate the investigation with the Ombud. You say you relied on the information that was given to you by officials, correct?
Yes, that's absolutely
I'm asking
correct.
you whether you received information from any other sources other than your officials by that time.
Not at all.
did you receive any reports about problems at the NGOs?
Once again, through you, Justice, the problems at the NGOs are the ones that I stated in my statement. The lack of food, non-payment to NGOs, which resulted in lack of food, and some of the problems I identified. Before then, I was not aware of any other issues.
So that information you were aware of by the time you reported to the legislature on 13 September?
Yes, Council.
And were you aware of reports of, did you receive any reports of bodies lying at funeral undertakers?
No, I didn't. I was not aware at the time that was the case.
And did you answer the legislature fully and were you candid when you responded to the questions on the 13th of September?
When I answered the question, it was on the basis of the information that I had at my disposal. And to that extent, I think I answered to the best of my ability.
Did you withhold any information from the provincial legislature?
No, I did not.
Can you explain then why you said the following in your interview with the Ombud? You said the following: every day I have to walk on ice or like on eggs to try to manage what you say to the legislature, what you don't say to legislature, and because that information is then used and obtained against you or turned against government and the province. Why did you say that?
The reason I said that, and it's something that I said in a couple of meetings in government, that the reliability of information that you get from the department had always bothered me. Be it questions on the list of patients waiting to do an operation in this and that, like the orthopedic patients, hip replacement, joint, whatever, and many, many other things. So it was on the basis of that whatever information you're receiving, you've got to be, you try your utmost best to make sure that information comes from a reliable source, which is the HOD, and on the basis of that, I have trust that that information is authentic, then I can go ahead and present it.
So you're saying that you're careful because you don't trust the information you get from your officials?
Yes, I began not trusting the information that I was getting from officials.
So
after that effect.
Well, this was in relation to your response to the legislature in September.
I'm not sure was exactly for that question. I thought we were talking in general terms at the time I was having I went to the Ombuds hearing.
So why do you say that you have to be careful because it'll be used against you, the information, against you or against the government?
Against, I don't know. I don't remember saying against me as a person. I think what I would refer to normally is that whatever information you use sometimes is used as a political football, and information that was intended for good purpose, it ends up being twisted and turned in this and that direction to achieve a political objective. It was not really a malicious intention of one kind or the other.
You agree that the constitutional obligation on you as a member of the provincial legislature, as a MEC, is to provide full information to the provincial legislature?
I never misled the legislature on any information. Whatever I presented was truthful information I had and I was given by the department. And I took the oath of my office very seriously.
That allegation has not been made yet. The question was, do you agree you have a duty to report faithfully to the legislature?
Yes, Justice, I do.
I'm sure that is a yes, yes. Now the next question, there might be an accusation that you did not, then you can deal with it. But for now, you have the duty, you're an MEC, you must report to the legislature. Okay, Council?
And do you agree that it's your duty to, that it's the legislature's duty to hold you to account for the exercise of your functions?
Absolutely.
And that in order to hold you and your department to account, that information is necessary.
Yes, I agree. May I just elaborate a small
Yes,
point?
certainly.
Ever since I was an MEC of every different portfolio in Gauteng, I respected the legislature to the last day. Every committee, whether it's public accounts or committee directly where I'm accountable to, I presented to the legislature. No official reported to the legislature because I took my responsibility as accounting to the legislature very seriously. The departmental official will present to the legislature only when I was not available for one reason or the other, but at all material times, I took the legislature very seriously and I accounted fully at any given point in time.
Including in your reports on Life Esidimeni.
On everything, as I'm saying, in the past 12 years.
You never withheld any information?
I don't believe so, unless I was not there, information was withheld from me.
Can you have a look at file 3? Page 1034.
Thank you. Would you repeat the page again,
So
Councillor?
page 1034, Justice.
Thank you.
Have you found it, Ms. Mahlangu?
Which page again?
Page 1034.
1034. Yes, I found it.
And you see that's an email from Section 27 to you dated the 1st of September.
Yeah, I see the page.
And it says that there's a letter attached for your urgent attention concerning Precious Angel's home. And you received it because you say on the 1st of September, thank you, Sasha will revert back to you urgently.
Yes, I remember it.
But you never responded. Why is that?
I responded by asking the HOD to look at the issues that are being raised and to also go to the NGO and look at the concerns that are being raised. And I'm not sure exactly of the date when I went to Precious Angel.
But you didn't respond to Section 27. You didn't revert to Section 27 as you said you would. Why is that?
Council, the way I used to work, reverting may not necessarily mean that I'll answer via the email. I will ask probably the HOD or someone else to say, can you please follow through on this matter, which has been raised by me.
So when you said we'll revert, you didn't actually mean you'll revert.
Personally,
with the
so I'll
response.
revert probably via somebody else by getting an action done
So
in
you
response
didn't.
to the,
So you
to the
did
question.
not respond. You
I
didn't
can't
get
remember
back
exactly.
to the author of this letter.
I can't remember exactly the details of that unless I have to.
I'll take you to the letter. It's Exhibit LR 130. It's one of those that have just been handed up. Justice, the letter was in the record, but a few pages were missing.
Oh,
Hence the need for LR 130. Do you have it, Ms. Mahlangu?
Yes, I do have it.
Do you need time to look it over? Do you recall
Yes.
this letter?
Can I please read it? If possible.
Yes.
yes. While you read it, I'm going to adjourn for 10 minutes for you to read, and by the time you've read it, then the cross-examination will continue. Shall we adjourn? Thank you. You may be seated. Ms. Mahlangu, you're under your previous oath to tell the truth. Counsel.
Thank you, Justice. Have you had an opportunity to read through the letter?
Yes, I've gone through it, Counsel.
And you see that it's a letter on the 1st of September 2016 from Section 27. And they say they're writing to you on behalf of SADAG, the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, the South African Federation for Mental Health, and the South African Society of Psychiatrists. And they record a concern, and that's in relation to the death of Virginia Makpela. So for the purpose of context, I need to just go through the letter with you. Your attention was drawn to the fact that Ms. Makpela that the sister of Ms. Makpela was informed that that Ms. Makpela would be moved to Cullinan Care Center. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
But that in fact, she hadn't been moved to Cullinan Care Center, that is the hospital, but she was moved to Anchor, the NGO. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And then she was moved again from Anchor to Precious Angels. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And she died on 15 August 2016 at Precious Angels. So the first concern that was brought to your attention through this letter is the circumstances regarding the cause of death of Ms. Virginia Makpela. Do you agree?
We can't struggle about that. It's in the letter.
Sorry?
I said we can't struggle about that. It is in the letter.
No, I'm not struggling, Justice. I'm
Yes.
trying to understand the question exactly what...
You agree that the first aspect of the letter is relaying concerns to you about the death of Virginia Makpela and the circumstances that led to her death at Precious
Yes.
Angels. And the second concern, in paragraph 7 of the letter, is that there were 6 other bodies from Precious Angels in the funeral home where Ms. Makpela's body was. Do you see that?
Yes, I see that.
And the letter then expresses concern about the number of bodies at this funeral home. And then in paragraph 11, the request to you is an urgent indication from you as to when you are available to meet to discuss how to take these matters forward, the matters that have been raised earlier on in the letter. Why did you not then revert to indicate your availability to meet urgently? You previously told us that you give your cell phone number to the public. So you are accessible, isn't that so?
Yes, it indeed.
So why did you not? This is quite a serious letter, wouldn't you agree?
It is, Counsel, if I may, Justice,
Yes.
I frankly am not sure how finally this letter, other than responding to Sasha at the time, who did I ask to look at this letter and its contents so that we can get the facts about it. And I'm also not sure whether my visit to Precious Angel was triggered by this letter or not. I'm just trying to remember, and please bear with me. I have to try and rely on my memory, and I seem not to remember the greatest.
Precious Angel? Do you remember?
I really can't remember because I don't have access to my diary at the time.
Okay, but you were aware of this by 1st of September and you did not revert to Section 27, correct? You've
Council,
said that
I'm
already.
not sure exactly what action I asked who to take.
But you
to follow
yourself
through.
did not get back to Section 27 to report back on what steps you'd taken.
Normally, I would not go back to an organization if they raise issues. I will ask an official relevant to take the matters forward. But in this instance, I can't remember exactly how I asked the matter to be dealt with by who and all of that. And again, just to say that I don't know exactly what informed my visit to Precious Angel. I just have to really refresh my memory. And
do
try
you know
and
whether
talk to one of
any of your officials got back to Section 27 on this?
Sure. I'm not aware. I'm not sure.
Did you
I'm not
follow
sure.
up with any of your officials to ask whether they had reverted to Section 27?
At this moment, Council, I'm not sure exactly how this letter. I can probably try and refresh my mind, maybe overnight, and come back to you tomorrow. But at this moment, I'm not really able to give you any decent answer.
That answer suffices. You knew on the 1st of September about these dire circumstances described in this letter. So let's look at how you answer the question to the legislature. In file 3, at page 1078, so it's the same file that you have open. At page 1078. At the bottom of the page is the parliamentary question that was put to you. And there were five questions, I beg your pardon. And in summary, the questions were in relation to the names of the NGOs where there have been complaints about shortage of food, poor living conditions, and what action has been taken to rectify this. The names of the NGOs where there have been complaints about poor medical care and what's been done about it. How many patients have been transferred elsewhere from the first NGO they were placed with? How many patients have died since being placed with the NGOs? And finally, whether you will apologize for the poor manner in which transfers to NGOs were done. You've already told us that you fully understand your constitutional obligations as an MEC and a member of the provincial legislature. Your answer to the question at paragraph 3 of your response on the next page, 1079. Can you read that paragraph out loud? The paragraph starting just answering your question specifically.
Should I read it for the record?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Sorry, the paragraph that begins just answering your question specifically.
Out of all the 122 NGOs that have been providing healthcare, mental health to patients throughout the years, and only 8 new NGOs we are talking about. We only received one complaint from one NGO that was not registered properly, operating at the Cullinan Rehab Center, and that the NGO has finally been dismissed. They went to court and everything and everywhere else, and we have concluded our work on them.
Do you remember what NGO is that you were referring to?
I think it was Yabadinga. I'm not sure. Something
So
like that.
why did you say that you've only received one complaint? Why did you not refer to the complaint about Precious Angels?
But the question I answered to the legislature was relating to the specific things that I was responding to.
Yes, and the question was about complaints in relation to NGOs. And you say you only received a complaint in relation to one NGO. But that wasn't true at the time, was it?
Well, I'm not sure, because probably you're referring to the Section 27 email.
Yes, the letter that you've just read, the long letter about the circumstances of the death of Ms. Machpela.
But what I started saying in this answer, based on the question given to me, is saying that the official response that was relating to the concern about food and all of that was the NGO that I'm referring to here. And it's on the basis of that I gave answer to the legislature.
So you gave an answer to that question, and even though you had other information about the circumstances of NGOs and deaths, you did not provide that information to the legislature.
But on the 13th of September, that's when I answered the question relating to the number of deaths in the legislature.
Yes, but you had a complaint in relation to precious angels and in relation to bodies lying at a funeral home. Did you provide that information to the legislature in your response?
On the 13th of September, when I answered the question to the legislature, it was pertaining to the number of deaths that were brought to my attention, and that's the number that I answered. As to the fact that the numbers I was given were not accurate, it's something that really I did not know.
You're talking with counsel at cross purposes. The question is quite simple, actually. You were asked, which complaints did you receive about NGOs? And then you refer to the one in Cullinan. So counsel says to you, no, but by then you had received the letter we gave you an opportunity to read. So you had at least received a complaint about precious angels and about bodies lying at the morgue in Atteridgeville. So counsel says, but why didn't you tell that to the legislature?
But I do not think, Justice, that I was dishonest in my answer to the legislature. To the best of my ability, I answered the question to the legislature which was appropriate at the time, and to the information given to me.
Yeah, but you get the trade. It's uncomplicated. You're written a letter, you receive it, it was shown to you, you acknowledge it, and a few days later, something like almost 2 weeks later, maybe a little longer, you go before the legislature and you answer a question in which you don't disclose that you know about the problems at Precious Angels. There is a question, and you are invited to explain that.
Justice, in my earlier presentation, and I beg for indulgence, in my statement, I indicated that whatever information I provided to the public via the question in the legislature or through the media was on the basis of what I had known at the time. The issues raised in this letter, I did say I do not recollect, I recollect the email that I received. As to how I got the matter to be dealt with by who is something I cannot recollect at the moment. So, and I would not go to the legislature and lie about information I did not have, or information private at the time. I thought that it has been dealt with by the relevant official who might ask to deal with the matter.
O.D. Manamela gave you the information that you put before the legislature. We know that already.
The HOD, via the HOD.
I'm sorry, yeah, via the HOD, she gave you...
You're watching SABC News, and we continue our rolling live coverage of the Life Esidimeni hearings on in Parktown, Johannesburg. Former Gauteng Health MEC Qedani Mahlangu is being questioned this hour. We've heard counsel point out the correlation between the way in which patients were moved and the high death rate. Mahlangu being asked if she reported back to Section 27 when they raised concerns on patients. Counsel this hour reminding Mahlangu of her response to parliamentary questions put to her last year. Mahlangu being asked why she didn't disclose to Parliament the complaints on Precious Angels NGO and bodies lying at a morgue in Atteridgeville. Now, we'll be dipping back into proceedings, so do stay locked on to the SABC News channel as we cut to the heart of what happened during this unprecedented tragedy. The hearing continues. Time to take a short break. Colin will be back with all your business news after this.
Bodies lying in the funeral home. Why? But you did not include that in your response to the legislature. Isn't that so? You didn't include it in your response to the legislature.
Again, I want to repeat, Council, that I am not sure how I asked the letter to be dealt with by who at the time when the letter was received. I beg for your indulgence to try and get my memory.
That's not the question. We're not going to get anywhere if I ask you about A and you answer about B. You were asked, what complaints did you receive? You referred to an NGO at Cullinan. You withheld information about precious angels.
And why would I withhold information?
That's
from the
not for me to
legislature?
answer. But the fact is you did. Because by then you knew about the letter.
Again, through you, Justice, may I request to engage with the Department of Health through the Premier's office and to help me to get the relevant information that will help
to
me.
defer your answer to
Yes.
tomorrow or next day.
Yes.
Sure, Council, you might want
Well,
to come
Justice,
back to this.
sorry, Justice, the answer, whatever the witness wishes to defer, is not actually an answer to the question I've just asked. The answer is that the information was not provided in this response.
I understand the witness to be saying, I seem to have given, I may have given this task to somebody else to respond to the Section 27 letter. I don't remember who and
Yes.
how they dealt with it. But when I answered the questions, it may have still been within the department. That's what I understand her to say. And he's entitled to go back and go and look. And you can
Yes.
have the questions raised again
Yes,
after tomorrow.
the witness
and
may do so. But the question, sorry, Justice, but the question wasn't about what was done with the complaint. The question that was put to the former MEC in Parliament was what complaints had been received. And isn't it so, Ms. Mahlangu, that you did not report to the legislature about the complaint regarding precious angels?
Again, may I please ask Justice through you that I be given permission to go and look for this information that I need to look for, because I'm no longer in the Department of Health, and this occurrences when in 2016, it's more than a year already, so I need to really refresh my mind.
Sure. I'm inclined to grant the indulgence. I think you must go and look. You're going to be back here on Wednesday and Thursday, and Council can proceed with the line of questioning again.
Thank you, Justice.
But you can come back to you and say, I gave it to Dr. Malamela, I gave it to whoever else, and they didn't do what, or they did what, and you're at liberty to pursue it and press on her. But she says you want to go and look and see how she processed the Section 27 letter. And it's not unreasonable to allow her to do that.
No, but I still think that we are at cross purposes, but we'll return to it when we get more information from the witness. One of the questions that was also put to you during this hearing was how many patients had been transferred elsewhere from the first NGO that they were placed into another NGO. Why did you not refer to, again, in your response, this letter that informed you that Ms. Machpela had been transferred from one NGO to another?
Council, my responsibilities as an executing authority are not operational. For instance, and I beg your indulgence, Justice, I will not know of all the more than thousands of patients who are seen in Gauteng facilities when the patient is moved from place X to Y. And I also did say in my statement at the beginning of the hearings that I was surprised when I went to Cullinan on the 1st of July, that I remember. When I was at Precious Angel, I found some patients whom I had seen and I recognized at Cullinan, and I found them in Precious Angel. And I got an explanation, but I just didn't understand why people were being moved like that. So it's virtually impossible for me to have known each and every move for each and every patient that was being moved from X, Y, and Z when competent, qualified officials were involved in the transfer,
but you see,
the
the
movement of
cutting
patients.
end of Council's question is, you had certain information in this letter, and on a subsequent day, you go and report the legislature. But you don't include some of the information that, in fact, was in a letter whose receipt you acknowledged. And Council is entitled to text you on that and say, but why didn't you tell the legislature about these things? That's really where we are. It's less about movement of patients. It's about candor in reporting, honesty and accuracy in reporting to Parliament. That's really where she is.
To the best of my ability, Justice, I reported and accounted to the legislature as honest as I could, with the information given at my disposal.
But not all the information at your disposal. Is it your understanding of your constitutional obligation that you wait for a question from Parliament in order to provide information? Or is it that you, of your own initiative, must report to Parliament regularly? Which of the two?
Members of the executive, whether national or provincial, report to the legislature following the prescripts of the Public Finance Management Act. There are quarterly reports. There are monthly or bi-weekly questions to the legislature. And there are different forms of reporting. It depends what report, or be it quarterly report, which is non-financial, or quarterly report, which is financial. And there's certain information that gets reported to the legislature and on a quarterly basis, and there's information report is reported to the Treasury, which gets consolidated and taken to the legislature on a quarterly basis.
Well, the question is, are you allowed on your own to report to the legislature outside that quarterly cycle?
Yes, you can.
And did you at any point report to the legislature about the information regarding Precious Angels? And about the bodies lying at the funeral home?
I reported to the legislature via a question that was asked specifically on the mental health projects. We reported to the Portfolio Committee on Health where we account in terms of...
What did you report? Did you report on these two
the specific
factors?
issue?
Yes.
I do not remember that on this specific issue, because you report on policy issues and on general operations of the department in line with the budget, what the legislature approved and given the department to go and implement and allocate those resources to different programs.
So you didn't report on those
I
specific
reported
issues?
to the legislature on every aspect that I was meant to report to the legislature for, in line with the Public Finance Management Act, in line with the Public Service Regulations Act, and in line with the Constitution.
My version, and I'll put it to you, that you did not comply with your constitutional obligation in Section 133 of the Constitution, which requires full and regular reports. You can respond to that if you
Through
wish.
you, Council, through you, Justice, I don't remember missing any meeting in the legislature where I was meant to report on any item unless I was not available, incapacitated because I'm sick, I'm in hospital, or I am not in the province for one reason or the other, carrying duties in other parts of the province or outside of the province or outside of the country.
Well, then let's look at another response to the legislature if this one wasn't good enough. It's also in file 3, and it's page 1057.
Page what? Sorry?
1057, your response to the legislature question. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Well, let's just take the table that you provide. The question to you was, how many beds will be available for the patients at each hospital or other premises that you've identified? And you set out your answer in the table below it. So you say at Westkoppies Hospital, 416 beds identified, Sterkfontein, 230 beds, Cullinan, 400, and so on and so on. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Now can you have a look at file 1, page 173? Do you have it?
Yes, I am.
So it was now written to, SADAG now writes to you on 26 November 2015. And in their response, they deal with your answer to the legislature, and they deal with that at page 173. And they say to you that they contacted those hospitals that you referred to in which you said the beds would be available. And they tell you what the response was from the hospital. And the response from Westkoppies Hospital, where you said 416 beds would be available, was the following. And this, as it is reflected in the letter, is a response from either a hospital manager or a CEO. The hospital is currently full, has a waiting list, and has mixed wards. There's one empty ward that may accommodate 80 people, but requires significant renovation. So that contradicts your response to the legislature that there would be 416 beds available at Westkoppies. Do you see that?
Yes, I'm following.
And in Sterkfontein, the same. The hospital is currently full. Significant renovation required. Cullinan, you said 148 beds. Cullinan says the facility has wards that are empty but have previously closed due to health and safety concerns, would require significant renovation. Tshwane Hospital, 60 beds. The response was, psychiatric patients in this facility are in general wards and there's no dedicated psychiatric ward. Management has not been informed about the potential transfer of 60 patients. Transvaal Memorial Institute, the facility caters only for pediatrics. It's a referral and outpatient facility. Dan Pinar, The response is, the building is derelict and has been abandoned. Old Germiston Hospital, you identified 150 beds. The response is, the hospital only provides outpatient services after all patients were moved to New Germiston Hospital due to health and safety concerns. The building is not suitable for accommodating inpatients, and so on. So the information that you provided to the legislature on the 18th of November that we just looked at page 1057 was not correct. Isn't that so?
Through you, Justice, if you remember in my statement, I can't remember exactly which paragraph.
Let's start off by answering the substantive question. The information provided to the legislature and the outcome of a research by SADC shows that the facts presented before the legislature were substantially untrue. You have to first say yes by looking at them and then explain what your position is. But I'd like your response to that. It's a very drastic difference. What you told Parliament, I'm sorry, the legislature, and what was found to be true is vastly different. Do you agree with that?
Justice, yes, there is a difference, but may I explain?
Yeah.
Because the questions, when I answer questions, I've already explained that the questions come through the departmental officials. This is information that was given to me, and I also explained earlier that the same question was asked that the Premier must answer in the legislature, and I provided the same information because that's information were given by the officials, that this is what was going to happen. And
Aren't
I also
you shocked that your officials have misled you to this degree? They promised beds that did not exist. It's quite a substantial thing.
Yes, I am shocked and I am disappointed.
What council is putting to you that here you tell the legislature, look, we have the beds, we're going to manage this thing properly. And evidence comes right back that shows it is untrue. So that's what I'm concerned, council is concerned. I want you to deal with that. How could your HOD and whoever else and Dr. Manamela give you such patently false facts, which are then put before Parliament?
I honestly don't know how to answer the question, Justice, but information, as I said, we get it through the department to answer. And I also indicated that whilst we were told this information, later on, probably if you see the next answers, it will indicate that more NGOs took more mental health care users than the process which was anticipated in the initial stages.
But you see, council is taking you to something that is right at the heart of these deaths. Yeah. People ask questions, you say, it's fine, we've got hospitals, they're ready, there are beds, and these patients will be moved to them. Only 360 will go to NGOs. No, 1,700 are sent in different directions, and some die. That's where the question goes. I think you want to deal with that. It's blatant untruths that are placed before the legislature.
At the time of me presenting the answer to the legislature, Justice, I was made to believe the information is correct. And in the absence of any other information from the said officials or from an authorized body or whatever, I could not have answered the question differently from what I was given from the officials.
Why would Silibano and Manamela lie to you so openly and make you go to a public body and report so falsely?
I really don't know, Justice.
Counsel.
Ms. Mahlangu, I just would like to remind you of Section 133 of the Constitution, which deals with the accountability and responsibilities of MECs. And it says that the MEC of a province is accountable You're not accountable collectively only. You are accountable individually. That's the word that's used in 133 sub 2. Individually to the legislature for the exercise of your powers and the performance of your functions. And that you must provide the legislature with full and regular reports concerning matters under your control.
Yes, I agree with that. I understand the Constitution fully.
Did you take any steps to ensure that the information you were receiving was accurate?
I was never given any sense of doubt that the information given to me was incorrect.
So we're now in November 2015. This response was November 2015.
Yes.
And you received the information from your department officials, and you're saying they provided you with inaccurate information, with the wrong data.
I made that point in my statement.
Yes. And on the basis of that, you proceeded with the project.
No, on the basis of the information, and later on changed, and they included the NGOs. And again, even through that, I had no reason to believe that things were going wrong or the information was incorrect or inaccurate.
When you received the letter from SADAG that pointed out, the letter was addressed to you. When you received that letter that pointed out that, in fact, all of this that you've said in this response to the legislature is not true, you did not respond. Isn't that so?
Council, may I, with your indulgence, Justice? It is not possible for any politician to know every correspondence that's come before your office. It is virtually impossible. And correspondence addressed to me, to the HOD and to Dr. Menamela may not necessarily get to me in my hands directly, but may be sent to my office, and the office will say, well, this is should be directed to official X and Y and Z and Q. For the purposes of my answer to you, Council, is that since I do not have the actual, all the files and the things that I may recall of what would have happened, what information was changed when and how, I am not able to say, okay, at this point, I suspected they're lying, whatever, but I did not suspect anybody to be lying because of the work that the team had done, not the mental health, but HOD would have done in other departmental activities which were successful. I had no reason to believe or to doubt any information given to me. Because
did you have any reason to doubt the information that was given to you in this letter by SADAG and the other patient advocacy groups?
But I'm trying to explain to you, Council, through you.
No, just answer the question, please. Did you have any reason to doubt the information that was now given to you on the 26th November 2015 by SADAG and the SASOP and others?
May I answer the question? I beg your indulgence again, Justice. I'm going to repeat myself because it's important. It does not necessarily that mean every correspondence that's addressed to me, I get to see it every given point in time.
Okay, so you did not receive this. Is that what you're saying? You didn't receive it?
I am not sure whether I saw the letter or not.
So your first answer was that you had no reason to doubt the accuracy of the information from your officials?
Given by the department, yes.
Yes. And now you're saying, but in any event, you didn't receive this letter.
I'm not saying I didn't receive. I'm saying, Council, I am not sure about whether the letter I dealt with personally or it was sent to my office and the office directed to the respective individual in keeping with the volumes of work and the work that, and the things that we do, I would do in the department.
Did you have any suspicions of SADAG and SASOP and the other patient advocacy groups?
May you repeat your question?
Were you suspicious of them?
And I'm not sure why would I be suspicious of them.
Is the answer you were not?
No, I wasn't.
Okay, so then let's have a look at LA 129. It's one of the documents that have been provided to you. Do you see it? LA 129.
one, is this one?
It's an email. Do you have a copy to lend? Can you turn over to the second page?
You're watching SABC
And at the
News. It's
bottom of
about
the
10 to
second
5.
page,
Now we continue our rolling
email
live coverage
from SADC,
of the Life Esidimeni hearings that's on in
specifically from
Parktown,
Ms.
Johannesburg. We are on day 38. Former Gauteng Health MEC Qedani Mahlangu is being grilled this hour on the information she provided to legislature. That was last November, about mid-November. Justice Dikgang Moseneke, tasked with these proceedings, asked Mahlangu how inaccurate, false information was passed on to her to divulge to Parliament. Well, to audible discontent in the gallery, Mahlangu was saying she had no...
We'll get there at another point in time. It was a response to your own officials. What do you tell them?
And I asked the HOD and Dr. Liberty to work, to get involved as senior leadership of the department, because I think at the time...
No, but why don't you just read your response, your own words at the time?
Okay, so dear doctors, HOD Liberty and Manamela, please get out legal team to get involved in this process. HOD and Dr. Liberty, you have to drive this process to provide leadership. These NGOs are dishonest. Regards, please treat this as agent. Qedani.
So why do you tell your officials, your senior management, HOD, Dr. Liberty, Dr. Manamela, please get our legal team to get involved in this process? These NGOs are dishonest. So in fact, you had received the letter, and instead of dealing with the contents of the letter, you brought in your lawyers. Isn't that so?
But I refer the matter to the HOD and Dr. Liberty and Dr. Manamela, who are duly competent to deal with the issues in their purview as
No, they weren't. In fact, in your view, maybe they weren't. Maybe you didn't think so, because you don't refer to them for them to deal with the contents of the letter. You give an instruction. You say, get our legal team to get involved. These NGOs are dishonest.
My understanding, through you, Justice, my understanding of an instruction say would read different if I give instruction to a team. But when I say, please, can you do this? I'm not instructing people, I'm asking them to look at the issues.
You ask them to get the legal team involved, to respond to civil society groups operating within mental health care, organizations with their own expertise, patient advocacy groups. You get your officials to respond to them by saying, get our lawyers, because they are dishonest.
But I'm not
and
sure...
that is a violation of Section 195 of the Constitution, isn't it?
I'm not sure why would you come to that conclusion.
Do you know what Section 195, what obligation it imposes on you?
That I'm accountable and I must report on all the matters relating to my responsibility.
And that people must be responded to.
And I endeavor to respond to each and every person where I deem fit that a particular individual and a particular unit should get involved. I suggested as such.
And do you think that you complied with your obligations on accountability, being responsive to people's needs, being responsive to the public? In this email?
At all material times, Justice, I did my best to do what I was expected to do at any given point in time.
Yeah, but why did you dub an entity like SADC to be, or NGOs of that kind to be dishonest? Why did you say the word?
Exactly, I can't remember what could have led to that, Justice, but it's important to say that I was informed by the HOD of the processes and the meetings that they were having with the respective NGO. I'm sure the minutes are also available in the process, and I do know that there was a request by Section 27 or SADC, a request to have a meeting with me, and my PA suggested an alternative date, but they subsequently met with Dr. Manamela. Probably they couldn't wait, I think, for us to have a meeting on the first week of December.
But why, I mean, what council is putting to you is, why did you resort to saying, get our lawyers, show leadership? These people we're dealing with are dishonest. Why do you take that attitude?
At the top of my head, Justice, I can't remember exactly what we were dealing with at the moment, but I can refresh my mind.
Yeah, I'm sure, it's late in the day, we're just about to adjourn, but council will round up this part and we will adjourn. But this case has been characterized by a surprising disregard for professionals in the field of healthcare. Do you know why that was so?
I am not aware.
In the termination project, there was a deep disregard and suspicion towards NGOs that worked in the field and that sought to take views that might have been different from those of your department. And then you call them dishonest. There's something there that calls for an explanation, surely. What was it? Why did you think there was such irritants?
I really have to refresh my mind, Council, on all the issue, because this probably could have just been probably one-liner or two-liners response, but I just need to refresh my mind of what exactly could have been the issue here. And I do not mind coming back to this issue and answer it tomorrow on the date.
Justice, just before we adjourn, if I may just wrap up on this email.
Please do. It's almost 5 p.m. Yes. No, it's fine.
You copied your lawyer in this response, isn't that so?
Yes.
Yes. And instead of asking your officials, why is this information that's been provided different from the information you gave me and that I then gave to the legislature, you say to them, drive the process, these NGOs are dishonest. So you didn't ask them why they gave you different information, isn't that so?
I'm not following you. Sorry, I lost you.
Your response to the letter from SADC was as we've just read. What you didn't do was ask your officials, why is it that I'm getting this information that's different to what you've told me? Isn't that so? You did not ask them that.
Council, I asked the officials of the Department of Health a difficult question at any given point in time.
But not at this point in time.
But when I'm assured that things are okay, I'll believe that they're okay.
No, but you were told things are not okay.
Unless I'm proven otherwise, that things are not okay. For instance, Justice through you. And I'm going to refer to specific examples throughout the health system, because I think it's important to do so. When someone brings to my attention that in health facility X there is no medication, I wouldn't sit and twitch my finger without acting. I'll either ask the relevant official and the relevant head of the institution for us to work together to make sure that they resolve that issue and give me feedback. So I do not know, I'm not sure why.
But in this case, you did not do that. I'm not asking you about what you did in other spheres.
But you still remember where council is.
Yes, I
You
remember.
go to
It's
the
relating to the
legislature,
email.
You give them information. SADC comes back and says, we've researched it, and it is totally inaccurate and untrue. Your response to SADC letter is, you copy your lawyer and say, get the lawyers going. You, HOD, and Manamela and who else show leadership. And as for the NGOs, they are dishonest. So council says to you, but why do you go that route? Why don't you say to your officials, was the information you gave me for legislature accurate? Rather you go the other route. The NGOs are dishonest. And that's what council is taxing you with, to explain yourself.
There could have been a reason for justification for that, but at this moment, Justice, I do not exactly recall what would have been the circumstances which had led me to believe so, or through information given to me. And at the moment, I did ask that I beg for your indulgence to try and really refresh my memory, because these were the activities of 2014 and 2016 and all of that. So I beg for your indulgence on that point.
Council.
Justice, this is an appropriate time to adjourn.
I think it is. As you leave again, I leave you with very much the same question, which is quite substantive in my view, which is, why did you assume the political responsibility to resign? And this is an invitation when we resume again, because I want to understand what was the content of the accountability that you accepted. Why did you think things have gone so wrong that you ought to fall on your sword? I'm not blaming you for it. It may be that I actually admire public officials who fall on their sword. So I'm not being critical at all. But I'd like you to help us understand what was the big driver to assume that political accountability. And what are the things that worried you, that you believe went wrong? It's helpful if they come from you and from your lips. So think about it, and when we resume, council will still be busy with you. But there is the bee in my bonnet. It's buzzing and buzzing. So you go, and when we meet again, we're going to adjourn until Wednesday. We're not seating tomorrow. So that's going to give you time to do a number of things also. We're meeting again on Wednesday at 9:30, and we're going to continue until we finish the cross-examination, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So that is the time to which we adjourn. And I'm accordingly obliged to warn you to be here present on Wednesday morning at 9:30 to continue with the leading of your evidence. Council, any other council have any matter to raise before we adjourn? None. We are adjourned till Wednesday at 9:30.